Welcome to Carl Gustafs church. This church was built during the Swedish Empire, or what we call the era of great power. It is named after Carl Gustaf, who was the king of Sweden from 1654 to 1660. Karlshamn hasn't always been called Karlshamn. It was called Bodekull up until the 17th century. Bodekull was a fishing village, but when Sweden took the district of Blekinge from Denmark in the Treaty of Roskilde in 1658, plans of turning Bodekull into a fortified city was laid. The town got its new name, Karlshamn, after Carl Gustaf in 1666. During this time, the town had a mayor called Kristoffer. He was born in Hamburg in 1628. As a young man, he became a barber surgeon, and he joined the Swedish army in 1650. Skröder came to Bodekull in 1661 and became the naval barber surgeon at the shipyard on Boan, just outside of town, and then 5 years later, he became Karlshamns first alderman. On the 13th of December in 1678, Skröder was elected as mayor of Karlshamn, and he held that position until his death on the 22nd of March in 1699. Here inside the church, you can see Skröder's tombstone just behind me here in the chancel. You can also look at his epitaph on the south chancel wall. It was created by one of his 20 children, Kaspar Skröder. Kristoffer Skröder was one of the most important players in the construction of this church. It is said that an old storage house down by the pier was used as a church before. But as the town grew, they needed more room. And Kristoffer Skröder wanted to build a big church, but they lacked funds. Skröder suggested that the richer citizens could donate to build a half-timbered church, and the bourgeois or the commoners agreed. What they didn't know was that Skröder planned to build a stone church, both for fire safety reasons, but also for aesthetic reasons. Through private donations and from collections from congregations all over Sweden, the church was built, even though it took around 20 years. As I said before, it got its name from King Carl Gustaf in 1693, and it was consecrated by Bishop Matthias Stevkius on the 26th of October in 1702. In this video, I am going to show you some of my favorite places inside the church and some of my favorite items that exist in here. Some of them we see and use almost every day, and some of them are more hidden. In Central and Northern Europe, the bridal crowns are one of the oldest decorative headdressings worn by women. The crowns are a symbol of a woman's purity, but also for the Virgin Mary as the Queen of Heaven in the Western Catholic Church. This tradition has existed in Sweden since the 16th century, and it has continued through the ages. But the tradition also sparked new laws. To borrow a crown for her wedding, it had to be the bride's first wedding, and she had to be a virgin. If it was later found out that the bride wasn't a virgin, or if the couple's first child was born a little too close to their wedding date, she could be prosecuted for crimes that we in Swedish called kronobrott, which literally translated means crimes against the crown. But I think they speak more of these type of crowns than the head of state. The penalty for kronobrott was usually a hefty fine, and the money was often used to decorate the crowns, which explains why they, with the time, became more heavy and more heavily decorated. Now, in 2024, the crowns aren't used as often. Brides typically go for tiaras or other types of crowns, but usually a bride can borrow this type of crown from their congregation. We have 4 crowns in our congregation, and all of them are from the 20th century. They are not as heavy and as heavily decorated as many of the older ones are. All of them are made of gold-plated silver, but the decorations are a little bit different. This crown was given to the congregation in 1942 by a man named Victor Samuelsson. It has 8 triangular peaks and plants woven between the peaks. Here in Carl Gustafs kyrka, we have a lot of different types of communal silverware. We have a set that we use every Sunday in silver, and a ceramic set we use for our weekday mass. But today I'm going to show you a couple of pieces that we aren't using anymore, mostly because of their age. I tried to Google the English word for this type of silverware, but I could only find one for glass. So we are going to use the word jug, which is the literal translation for the Swedish kanna. A wine jug is a vinkanna. This jug is for the communion wine, and this ciborium is used for the altar bread. They were made by a man named Zacharias Meyer, somewhere between 1700 and 1750. Zacharias Meyer lived in Karlshamns between 1714 and 1758. Meyer was penalized in Karlskrona for what we in Swedish call bönhaseri, which means that he made his craft outside of the guild. Later on, he was seen as a master of his trade. The ciborium is made out of silver, and it has Agnus Dei on top of it, the Lamb of God. The lamb is holding a flag with a cross on top of it, and underneath it are stamps. You can see ZM, the state stamp for Karlshamns, and ZM again. The jug is made of silver and gold-plated silver, and it is decorated again with the Lamb of God and the flag with a cross. It also has grapes and grape leaves right here. And on the back of it, you can see an inscription of the people that donated it. We have a lot of different chasubles and altar cloths in Carl Gustafs church in a lot of different colors. And today I'm going to show you some of my favorite ones. And we'll start with these white ones. They are both made by Agda Österberg in the 1930s. Agda Österberg was a Swedish textile artist and painter who made thousands of textiles for churches and other public environments. This white antipendium, or altar cloth, is made of white satin and has a radiant sun embroidered on it. And in the middle there's an application of Jesus on the cross, and the cross is made of purple velvet. The chasuble has golden embroideries and sequins, a sun on the back, and some flowers. This black chasuble is my absolute favorite, and unfortunately we don't use it enough. It stems from 1881 and is made of black velvet, and the embroideries are made with threads of silver. Here in the front, we have the name of God. And on the shoulders, we have these very cute little tassels. It is incredibly heavy. And if you look at it on the back, there is a Latin cross with palm leaves at the foot of the cross. And the cross is also crowned. The green altar cloth is my favorite antipendium. It came to Carl Gustafs kyrka in 1963, and it's made of silk damask. And the applications are my favorite part of it. We have burning hearts on both sides. And on one side, maybe hidden by the chasuble, but there are palm leaves. And we have a chalice. And in the middle, we have a triangle, which is a symbol of the Trinity. And there is the hand of God, the burning bush that Moses met in the desert, a very small cross, a fish, and the three rings, which are also a symbol of the Trinity. And the text is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 6. And according to King James versions, the angels are singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." This baptismal font is the older one of the two we have here in Carl Gustafs church. It is made of brass, and it stems from 1717. It was donated to the church by a woman named Agneta Katarina Christophers and a man named Peter Schey, who was a merchant from Germany, who settled in Karlshamns and became a postmaster here in town. The baptismal font is beautifully decorated over the lid that you can remove. And if you look closely, you can see the name of the donators inscribed down here. Every time you talk about new and newer items inside a church, the word new is relative. But this is one of the newer items in Carl Gustafs church, but also in Swedish churches generally. Candle holders in churches seems to have been seen as a bit too Catholic for Lutheran churches after the Reformation, but something happened in the 1960s. The Reverend Martin Luther King was supposed to speak in the cathedral in Uppsala in 1968 during a big meeting with people from many different churches around the world. King was killed before that could happen, and Martin Lönnebo, one of the priests in the cathedral, and who was also later one of the bishops in Sweden, decided to place a big candle holder in the cathedral in Martin Luther King's memory. Today, there are special types of candle holders in almost every church in Sweden. People come in here every day lighting candles and having their own quiet prayer time. I read somewhere that in the 13 cathedrals in Sweden, there are 600,000 candles lit every year. It has become one of our most general religious ceremonies or rituals, even if you aren't actually religious at all. Our candle holder came to Carl Gustafs kyrka in 1981. The globe is crowned by a Greek cross and has a St. Andrew's cross down here in the middle. In a lot of churches by the coastline in the Nordic countries, there are ships either hanging from the ceiling or mounted on walls or in windowsills. They are often called votive ships or church ships. The word votive means promise or vow. If a ship was in distress, the crew would pray for safety and promise to donate to the church if they were saved. And when the crew was safe on land again, they often donated a model to the ship they were sailing on to the church, and it was then displayed inside the church. This tradition comes from the 16th century, and it has continued through the ages. These boats could also be donated as an epitaph of a deceased relative or as a thank you from fishermen for a big catch. In that case, they are called church ships. The ship here in Carl Gustafs church is not a real votive ship, it's more of a church ship. It's a brig and it's called Bravo, and it was donated to the church in 1984 by a sewing association called Karlshamns, and it was built by an artist called Carl Albin Strömberg. The real ship, Bravo, was built here in Karlshamn in 1861, and it shipwrecked in 1911 in Kattegat.